Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 has already spoiled what happens to Pike's girlfriend, but I don't care. When Star Trek Strange New Worlds premiered, it didn't just bring back the retro optimism of the original series era. It gave us one of the franchise's most quietly heartbreaking character arcs, Captain Christopher Pike's. Even before the first episode aired, fans of the original series already knew Pike's fate. We'd seen the haunting images from the menagerie, his scarred face, his confinement to a beeping chair, and carried the tragic knowledge that no amount of heroism or compassion would save him. But Season 3 of Strange New Worlds has done something unexpected. It's taken that same inevitability and extended it to his personal life, especially to his long-simmering relationship with Captain Battel. And while some fans are groaning that the show has spoiled what happens to Pike's girlfriend, I find myself shrugging, even smiling at the idea. Because in Strange New Worlds, inevitability isn't a spoiler. It's the point. Pike's curse, the man who knows his future. Pike's entire character arc in Strange New Worlds rests on a single moment of foresight. After glimpsing his own terrible accident in Discovery, he's been forced to live every day of his life with the countdown clock ticking. This is a man who will one day make an unimaginable sacrifice for cadets he's never met. This is a man who knows, better than anyone in Star Trek, that time is not an endless canvas, but a narrowing corridor. So when Strange New Worlds introduced Captain Battel, an ambitious, idealistic officer who matched Pike's decency with her own drive, fans could sense it. This was doomed to end badly. Maybe not tragically. Maybe just inevitably. We didn't know how, but we knew it wouldn't last. The show leaned into that unease with deft subtlety, playing their romance as a series of small, intimate shore leaves rather than a grand, sweeping love affair. Season 2's finale, however, dropped the other shoe. Battel's involvement with the Gorn border crisis, her attempt to do the right thing against Starfleet's wavering orders, lands her in mortal danger. The cliffhanger leaves her infected with Gorn eggs, her survival uncertain, and Pike forced to weigh command against personal desperation. It's brutal. It's also brilliant. Because if Strange New Worlds has spoiled Battel's fate, it's only because it's been honest about Pike's life from the start. Why spoilers don't matter in Star Trek? The complaint some viewers have raised is predictable. Why telegraph Battel's death? Why not surprise us? Why not let Pike have a happy ending for once? Here's why. Because Star Trek, at its best, isn't about happy endings. It's about meaningful endings. We already knew Spock wouldn't die in the original series, yet Amok Time and Journey to Babel still carried dramatic weight because the writing wasn't about will he live, but how will this shape him? We knew Kirk wouldn't permanently lose the Enterprise every time some alien of the week stole it, but the show still delivered tension and catharsis. And in Pike's case, we know his future. The writers know we know. They're not playing the old will she or won't she game with Battle, they're playing a much deeper one. What does Pike do when the person he loves is pulled into the same kind of fate he's accepted for himself? That's not a spoiler. That's a thesis. Battle as Pike's mirror. Captain Battel has been a fascinating addition to the canon because she's not simply Pike's girlfriend. She's his mirror. She's a starship captain who must balance her own duty, career, and moral compass. She's not stationed on the Enterprise, which means their relationship is always an exercise in compromise and distance, something Trek rarely explores in its lead romances. In Season 2, Battel's story quietly echoed Pike's own. She put her reputation on the line to defend Una Chin Riley No. 1 at her trial, even when Starfleet's politics discouraged it. She took command assignments in dangerous regions. She chose principle over safety. And in the finale, she ended up in a position eerily like the one Pike saw in his own vision, sacrificing herself for others. This isn't lazy writing. It's purposeful. By making Battel's arc a kind of reflection of Pike's, the show is forcing him and us to confront the question, what does it mean to love someone who's also chosen a life of risk and duty? When Pike looked into the future and saw his burned face, he accepted it. When he looks at Battel in Season 3 and sees her suffering, he can't accept it. That tension is the beating heart of his story this season. The beauty of inevitability. One of the reasons Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan remains so powerful is because Spock's death wasn't a shock twist. It was foreshadowed from the first scene, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and telegraphed by his goodbye to Kirk on the bridge. But we cried anyway. Why? Because inevitability doesn't kill drama, it heightens it. Strange New Worlds is playing a similar game. If Battel survives the Gorn infection, it will be because of Pike's choices that might cost him elsewhere. If she doesn't, It will deepen the tragic poetry of his life, a man who knew his fate but couldn't change the collateral damage. Either way, the point isn't what happens, but how he responds. That's the opposite of a spoiler. That's good storytelling. Pike as a proto-Sisko. It's worth noting that Strange New Worlds is doing for Pike what Deep Space Nine did for Sisko. We always knew Sisko's family and personal life mattered more than previous Starfleet captains had. We saw him struggle to reconcile fatherhood, duty, and war. The human grounding made his eventual transformation into the emissary, and his departure hit harder. Pike's arc is similar. By giving him a love story that's neither saccharine nor purely tragic, the show roots him in something real. We're not watching a marble bust of noble Starfleet captain. We're watching a man desperately trying to make the best of a bad deal with time. The fact that we know Battel's fate doesn't diminish that. It enhances it. Why, I don't care about the spoiler. So yes, Season 3 has basically spoiled what happens to Pike's girlfriend. It has telegraphed that her arc, like his, may end in sacrifice. But I don't care, because that's not why I watch Strange New Worlds. I watch it for the small moments. Pike cooking in his quarters for his crew. Battel sharing a quiet drink with him between missions. Spock learning to loosen up. Ortega's cracking a joke on the bridge. These are the beats that make the big twists matter. If Battel dies, I'll mourn her not because I was surprised, but because the show built a real, textured person and a real, textured relationship. And if she lives, if the writers subvert expectation and let her and Pike find some kind of bittersweet middle ground, then it will be because the show earned that too. Either way, I'm in. Star Trek has always been about confronting loss. From the death of Edith Keeler in The City on the Edge of Forever to the destruction of the Enterprise in the search for Spock, Star Trek has always asked its heroes to face loss and keep going. It's a franchise about explorers, yes, but also about the cost of exploration, about the toll it takes on relationships, bodies, and ideals. Pike's story, more than any other captain's, embodies that theme. He's not a swashbuckler like Kirk or a philosopher king like Picard. He's a man carrying a heavy burden and trying to lead with kindness anyway. Giving him a doomed romance isn't cruel. It's consistent. It's honest. And honestly, that makes me love him more. The real spoiler we should be talking about. Here's the thing. Battel's fate isn't the real spoiler. Pike's is. We've known it for decades. But we're still tuning in, still rooting for him, still hoping the writers will find ways to surprise us emotionally if not narratively. That's the magic trick Strange New Worlds is pulling off, and why it's the most exciting Star Trek series since Deep Space Nine. By showing us a man who knows his ending but lives fully anyway, the show invites us to do the same. That's not a spoiler, that's a message. Final thoughts. Season 3 of Star Trek. Strange New Worlds hasn't just spoiled what happens to Pike's girlfriend. It's made us look squarely at the costs of loving and leading in a dangerous universe. It's shown us a captain who can save cadets he's never met, but may not be able to save the woman he loves. It's shown us a romance that was never about a happily ever after, but about two adults making meaning in the time they have. That's not a flaw. That's a feature. That's Star T.